Oh my god. The fury I made 2 episode reviews back. I think I struck it right. The ending of this episode alone just confirms that. And I'm thinking like, Kaori has to die to have the right development on Kosei. To have Kosei to have his overall major development, his final development, Kaori needs to die. And I don't want to see her to die, but with this episode, it sets that up. It literally, it's not just the ending dialogue that is a death flag. There's multiple death flags in this. Like, you have the one scene to where Kaori, after she was running a lot, you see her get weak and she almost fell down when she was leaning up against the wall when she was going to her room. And then you see the overall monologuing of Kaori when she was talking about the bug, the little light bug, how it's very small, and this is like the light of its life. And I'm like, she's pretty much talking about her own self. And then she has to say that dialogue at the end when Kosei actually says, "You are my new reason to play." And then you saw her, like, we couldn't see her face. They made sure to not show her face, but clearly, if we would have saw it, it would have been sadness. And that right there makes me think, like, she's dead. She's gonna fucking die. Like, she says that she doesn't have, like, all the time to be here. Like, for instance, she won't always be here for Kosei. And as I said in my theory I made, Kosei lost his reason to play because of his mother. And then he had to find a new reason, which was, you know, Kaori. And he will eventually lose his reason to play again if she does die, but to further his development, he needs to be able to play for his own reasons without actually having to lean upon another. And to see something like that, I'm thinking, like, they're really setting up her death. And I'm here thinking right now, as I watch this, are they really going to try to kill her off? Like, honestly, from my perspective of watching and reading a lot of manga and watching anime, shoujo, and all that, it's rare to see a female character die, even with death flags, but I'm very optimistic. And I have heard this series, the manga, is going to be ending in March. And this series is supposedly going to actually get the true ending that the manga is going to get. That's what I've heard from fellow Chibits that actually read the manga. And so, since we're going to get the full completion of Shigatsu, it makes me think that maybe we are going to get a death. And if that does happen, I really don't know how to feel. Like, instantly, if I do see Kaori die, I'm just going to say right now, I'll cry. First things first, I'll fucking cry. Second thing I'll do is I'll be shocked. And I'd probably be like, what the fuck did I just watch? Then the third step, I'd be like, this is amazing. It just broke a cliche I barely ever see broken before, like killing off a main character in a shoujo. If it does happen, you know what, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but the thing is, I don't want her to die, but to make this story really good, if I was a writer of this, it would be the right path to choose. It would. Because it would add more emotional development on Kosei as a character, allow his growth to grow even further, and it would just be a very tragic, bittersweet ending, too, to see him actually learning to get past this, like, move past this sadness to be able to play for his own reasons. So, moving past that, besides the obvious death flags setting up in this episode, like, the death flags have been there since the very beginning. They're slowly building up, but there's more and more death flags all on top of Kaori that's building up. Let's talk about the other elements of this episode. Now, for the most part, this episode, very simple. It's a very, very simple episode. You have it to where Kosei actually sees his results. He's not on the board. Pretty much he completely failed, and he actually sees how everybody that was actually trying their hardest were saying like they were bitter, like this is a terrible, stuff like that. They were really upset, and you saw Kosei when he was looking at this, he actually remembered about his friend, you know, how his childhood friend technically was in a similar state. And so to see this overall aspect, it shows you a lot of similarities, and Kosei kind of knows how they feel. But the thing, though, that really got me about this episode was one key dialogue. One piece of dialogue in this episode that stood out among everything else. Besides the death flags, there's one dialogue. Now, it could be a translation issue. It could be because I misinterpreted it and I didn't understand it properly. I'm just going to say it right now before I continue on. But in the flashback sequence with Seto and Kosei's mother, in the flashback, we saw Kosei as a baby. He was a little baby, he was a child. And you saw the mother, you know, the mother of Kosei caring for him, you know, treating him like a nice child, like how a mother should treat her child. Complete difference from what we actually saw with, you know, Kosei's flashbacks and stuff. But the mother acted very nice, caring. And the funny thing is that Seto, the girl that was introduced in this episode, is like, oh, are you going to have him play the piano? And I'm like, what? And then you have it to where the mother says, like, oh, no, I don't want him to do that and all that. Well, she didn't say those exact words, but she pretty much said that, like she didn't kind of wanted to play the piano, but then Seto kind of talked her into it because he was just such a natural and a prodigy at playing the piano. So, are you telling me that something else probably happened in the past with Kosei's mother, and like to actually choose to let him play the piano, or try? Was it the real reason why Kosei's mother got like she was because of Seto? I have no idea. Like I said, I could be misunderstanding that overall segment of this episode, but it seemed like it was pointing towards that. Now, besides that, Seto as a character, hopefully I got her name right. She's a really interesting character. She looks a lot like Kosei. I mean, it's like crazy. She looks really similar. Like, she's like an older sister figure to Kosei, which I guess you can still kind of consider that with this episode. And you can see she clearly cares for him. And she hasn't seen him in quite a few years, like 2 years if I'm correct, she hasn't seen him. And so the episode really just had a lot of emotional moments building up inside of it that makes me really enthusiastic to see the next episode. So, one thing I do want to mention is the music score at the end of this episode. That, you know, there's one thing when it comes to Shigatsu, and I mean, it's already apparent enough to all of us that have watched this series. The soundtrack is to die for. The soundtrack is just 10 out of fucking 10. Like, oh my god, the dude did the fucking soundtrack. Oh. I'm a massive fan of classic, and when I see that classical music, and when I see that music at the end, oh shit. Like, that entire moment at the end of the episode with the animation, all that, it reminded me of Oh Hardy Rod. It really did. That ending instantly reminded me of Oh Hardy Rod, and you saw how Kosei actually kind of said that his real reason to play now is because of Kaori. And she found out. That entire moment right there had a lot of power to it, a lot of meaning, and it was a beautiful scene. Beautiful segment of this episode. 10 out of 10 segment for that entire bit right there. Episode for the most part. What would I rate the episode? I would give this episode a 9 out of 10, or an 8.5 out of 10. It's one of those. It's a really damn good episode. It was consistent with animation, quality, progression, even the death flags, the setup, and yeah, that's pretty much what this episode did. So tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.